That reading this morning reminds us when Jesus said that about keeping the Sabbath. If you circumcise on the Sabbath, that way the law of Moses would not be broken. Jesus is giving us an idea there of what it is, what was important to the people of Israel. They were keeping certain aspects that were important to them, and we as Christians can take a lesson from that today, in that we don't just want to keep what's important to us. We want to try to live as God would have us to live each and every day of our lives. If you will, I'd like to continue talking about some parenting. We've got probably one more lesson, and I may break it up for the kids' sake with a created creatures lesson next week, but I'd like to go ahead and talk about taking delight in our children. If you don't like children, it would probably be a good thing for you not to become a parent. I guess I've always been a child nut. I was the oldest of 8 children, and I took care of my little brothers and sisters, and even though I wasn't a parent at the time, you took delight in their accomplishments. I took delight in their accomplishments. I would take one of my sisters to the barn to milk with me when she was little, my sister Grace, and had a swing that Dad had built for her, and I'd put her in that swing, and she'd watch me milk, and I might rock her a little bit between milkings, and there were just times that I took great delight in my younger brothers and sisters. And as a parent today, I take great delight. There was a couple that used to come to church with my grandmother, and I guess like I said, always been a kid magnet. I've often wondered where this family is today, but they were from Payton City. They were related to the husband was the son of Bill and Dorothy Long, who's related to me very distantly. But they had a couple of children when they came to church with my grandmother, and they were really small at the time. But after church, I guess I was the bra growing up. They would when I go to church with my grandma, those kids would come up and reach up. I'd pick them up and I'd hold those kids. And the last I knew, that family was in Japan. I don't have any idea. I can't imagine they're still there. But taking delight in children is such a wonderful thing. And, it's something that we as parents should do, delight in our children. So I want to talk to you a little bit about taking delight in our children and enjoying the time that God has given us. It's not only something that we take delight in children, but God takes delight in us. We've been adopted into God's family. We are part of God's family. When we become Christians, we become God's adopted sons and daughters. And God delights in us, just like we delight in our children. When things are good, God delights in us. When things go bad, God reprimands us. But in Romans chapter 8 and in verse 15 of that chapter, the Apostle Paul writes, "For you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you have received the spirit of adoptions as sons, by whom we cry, Abba, Father." Now, I don't know about you, but, to see a little child going around saying mum, 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 or dad, 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 is one of the greatest things. And hopefully that's those are the first words a child learns to say, is mama or daddy. And they should bring a glint to our eyes. Just like when we say Father to God, or Abba, which means daddy in Hebrew language. And so God takes delight in hearing us call him his Father. And so it is when we hear our children calling us by name. I've got a couple of children who don't call me Papa, every once in a while, one of them to torment me calls me Poppy. Don't you, Emma? She knows I don't care for that, but she likes to call me Poppy. So if Emma likes to call me Poppy, I'll be Poppy. But, and every once in a while, a child calls me Father, and I look at, what did you do wrong? I don't go by Father, I don't go by Daddy very often, but Papa and Poppy I go by. And God takes delight in His children, and so we should take delight in our children. You know, I mentioned this morning in Bible class that our time is so short with our children. And I think that it would behoove all of us to be as involved as possible in our children's lives. And I'm preaching to myself as well as to anybody else this morning. The book of Psalms, David writes in Psalm 37 and in verse 23, the steps of a man are established by the Lord, when he delights in his ways. Though he fall, he shall not be cast headlong, for the Lord upholds his hand. You have been young, and now am old. I have been young, and now am old. Yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, or his children begging for bread. He is ever lending, generous, and his children become a blessing. David is saying that God's children are a blessing. God catches us when we fall. You know, one of the things that I've noticed as being a parent is you always hurt for your children. You know, my children have been pretty fortunate as far as mishaps and falls and bumps. But, you know, yesterday Sarah got her hand stuck in the door of the van, and, you know, they pinched her fingers. And, you know, I see that redness and I hurt for her hands. You know, and there have been other times that, you know, you feel for your children. You know, one time Peter had a fever. I will never look at a fever the same again. He had a fever, and it was really high. Kate was holding him in the rocking chair, and he was little, and he went into a seizure and swallowed his tongue, quit breathing, turned blue. You know, I'm telling you, it was the scariest moment in my entire life. I had no clue what to do. I am medically challenged, if you will. The sight of blood nauseates me, and so he's blue, you know, and thankfully Kate knew exactly what to do, you know, to get his tongue pulled back out so that he was breathing again. But that struck a little bit of panic. I've never looked at a fever the same way. Never saw that before, never want to see it again. And so, you know, those times you catch your children when they fall. Sometimes you talk to them about things. You know, as my children get older, they're making preparations for life. And Ruth is trying to figure out, you know, what she's going to do, how she's going to go about life, you know, when she's out of school, which is crazy, but it's not but maybe 3 years down the road. And I know Dylan is looking towards the same sorts of things. Pamela's trying to help Dylan navigate these things. And so our children, as they get older, we navigate that road with them, and we try to direct their paths, but also we try to catch them when they fall, or pick them up, just as God does in Psalm 37 there.